Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty. And today we're going to be starting a new series, and more about that in a moment. But right now, Happy New Year to everybody. I think we said that last week, though, because we had a So Chatty, didn't we, last week?
Yeah.
It's already January the 10th. My God, we're almost a third of the way through the month. We are a third of the way through the month. And here down in the States, you guys are getting buried in snow. We are not.
Well, we're supposed to get snow tonight.
Yeah, but I don't think we're getting that much, are we?
No, 7 centimeters,
Oh, big deal.
which is like
Nothing.
2 inches.
Yeah. And yeah, it looked like Atlanta, according to our friend Russ of Quilt Meets World. He sent me some pictures today of what he's looking at, which I guess is an unusual situation in Atlanta. But yeah, he's got snow. And he says people don't know what to do with it. So it'll melt. It always does. I
It might
guarantee
melt
you.
faster down there than it does up here. But
Well, I guarantee by July there'll be no snow anywhere in the northern hemisphere, except maybe Arctic. But even that, I don't know, it's melting. But anyways, we digress, as we often do. So let's talk about what I have been up to since last week. Let me find the right button. There it is. I made it in the hoop bag. Now, we are going to do a series about bag making, tote bag making. And we're going to do it from 2 points of view. My point of view of doing them in the hoop and with my embroidery machine, and Walter will do it for his designer bags, tips and tricks on that. But that's not going to come up immediately. That'll be a few weeks' time before we start that, because we have something different we're going to start today, as you're about to see. But that's what I've been up to. What have you been up to?
right now, not a lot.
Oh,
I was getting my fabric together for the current In the Hoop project, which I haven't started yet.
yep. And you will see our fabric choices in a second. But Walter he's going to a sew day tomorrow.
I'm not going to do the In the Hoop stuff because the embroidery machine will bounce around too much.
Yeah.
I don't want to take it away. So I do have a shirt cut out that I took to the retreat, which I never started. And so I would like to focus on doing that.
And is that a shirt for you?
Yes, it is.
Oh, there's
It's
a rarity.
It's black and navy and it has panthers on it.
Has what on it? Panthers?
I think panthers. Either that or leopards.
Ooh.
I'm not sure.
So it's another shirt in the series of your pussy shirts.
Yeah, I guess
That's
so.
the big pussy. Big pussy. Giant tiger, big pussy. Big panther. Whatever on that. Well, stay tuned. He'll show that at some point in time whenever we get to it. Yes, I got my hair cut today, and she does this bouffant thing. Bulbous bouffant.
Yeah, well, I don't get my hair cut that often.
Yeah, I wonder why. So I should have fluffed it down. Anyway, she likes to do this thingy, the peak on it, and I don't know.
Alfalfa.
Yeah, the alfalfa look. Yeah. And that's a reference that some of you may get, some of you may not. Doesn't matter. Okay, so what is coming up? Well, of course, we've started again. Stephanie and I have started up sewing with Stephanie and Stephen. Wednesdays, as usual, 9 a.m. start time. Come whenever you want. Links in the show notes. Yeah, so that's that. Pop-up sew day. Yeah, actually, I was originally planning to have it, well, sort of. It was suggested to me that maybe I should do one on the 11th, which is tomorrow, Saturday. But I thought that was too close to everything else I was trying to sort out since we got home from the retreat. So I put it to the 18th. Now, if I had known that Walter had a sew day on the 11th, I probably would have put it there, but I didn't. So, no.
Yeah, well, I didn't find out about this until a couple of days ago. So I thought, I kind of want to go.
Okay, fine, go. Goodbye.
I missed the last two, so I want to.
Okay, fine. I'll just be here all by my lonesome, sitting in the basement, twiddling my thumbs. No, I won't be twiddling my thumbs. I have lots of things to do. But anyway, so the next pop-up sew day is going to be next Saturday, January the 18th. The Zoom link will appear in all of my videos, starting with Stephen and Walter Live this Sunday, but it'll be on my blog on Monday. It'll be in my episode of the Idiot Quilter on Tuesday, and it will be in So Chatty next week as well. So lots of opportunity for you to find that link. And for those of you on the mailing list, I will send that out to you as well sometime mid-Monday as well. Start time well, I open up the virtual doors at 8 a.m. You come and go as you please throughout the day. And it's just a chance for everybody to get caught up on their sewing and have some socializing and that kind of thing. So all are welcome. And if you've never done a pop-up sew day with us, you're more than welcome to come. Don't feel intimidated. It's not a competition. People show if they wish what they're working on, not an obligation. Just, people who like to share things, and you can participate in it as much as you feel comfortable with. And we've had, over the last few pop-up sew days and on Sewing with Stephanie and Stephen, we've had some newbies on there who all said that they were a little apprehensive, they didn't know what to expect, and they were a little shy. Well, by the time that they finish the day, they're going to be repeat visitors. They found out we don't bite at all. It's just a good time.
No, you don't?
Well, only if they want us to. But we don't suck either. We don't bite or suck. So, okay, that sounded bad. But what I meant is we're a nice group, okay? We're not nasty people. So, hope if you've never been to one before, hope this one works into your schedule and you can come for a little while. Anyways, okay. I think that's all the announcements. Next thing, what we're doing, our newest project. Okay, well, let me get this up on this screen here so you can see what we're talking about. Give me just a second. Screen. Where's the screen? There it is.
Did you actually show that bag down here?
I just
You
showed
talked
it.
about it, but I've been up here all the time.
No, I put it up.
Okay, all right.
I saw it.
Okay, never mind.
Did I? Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, just in case. Now he's got me questioning myself. I hate it when he does that. Okay, you saw that, right? Yeah, that's the bag. Okay, it's called the sewing tote. And yeah, it's a sewing.
I have a feeling you didn't show it.
Maybe I didn't show it.
You talked about it, but you didn't show it. Because you didn't put us down in the screen. You brought it up there, though.
Oh, okay. Anyways, all right, so here it is. I got confused. I get distracted. Squirrel. All right, so this is my latest bag. It was an in the hoop bag. It's called the sewing tote. I think it was designed by Sweepy Designs, and yeah, I think it turned out pretty good. That's Walter's arm holding it up for display. It's all fully lined on the inside as well. And yeah, you're right.
Do you attach the handles in the hoop as well, or is that separate?
No, that's separate. Yeah, it's all made up. What the parts that are in the hoop are the squares. If you see each one of these blocks, and then you sew them all together using your sewing machine, and you also sew the bottom on. You have, and this bottom has soft and stable in the very bottom of it. This picture doesn't show that, but keeps it soft and stable with it as well. So yeah, so it's not entirely done in the hoop. It's also a combination of in the hoop and on your sewing machine, and most of them are like that. But I did find some new patterns that I think are done. There's one that sounds intriguing that I found and I downloaded that says you do the lining in the hoop as well. You see, you don't do the lining in the hoop with this. You do the lining in the way you would normally do lining for a tote bag kind of thing. You cut your fabric the size of the bag, sew it up on the sides, cut out your corners, turn it and put the bag, the outside of the bag inside the turned out lining, pull it through the hole in the bottom, and blah, blah, blah. But I found this one pattern. I haven't read it yet. I just got it actually yesterday. And it sounds like you do the lining in the hoop as well. So
that would be interesting.
So which, if that is the case, we probably will do that in the series we're going to do on tote bags. So, and I've got a bunch of different tote bags too that I want to get done for the series or do parts of them in the series as well. But that's not going to happen for a few weeks. So back to what we were talking about here. And let me find the pattern for this. This is a wall hanging. I shouldn't have done that. That was stupid. Okay. Show you this first. Okay. This is called the Kindred Creatures Tiling Scene by Laurel Birch. It's an OESD pattern. Walter originally bought this pattern. I had seen it, but I thought, do I need to make another wall hanging? And at that point in time, we weren't talking about doing it as a series. But
yeah, I like the bright colors, and I like cats on it.
Yeah, I like the bright colors in it too as well. It's got a very neon-y, nouveau kind of look to it all. This consists of 12 pieces, 12 panels that you will have to sew together. And there's some applique, freestanding applique. These flowers are not part of the design. Like when you do a panel, you make these separate and then you either sew them on or glue them down. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about that in a minute with this as we analyze the pattern. But it's very bright and very colorful. So what we've decided to do is Walter has picked fabrics that and threads he wants to use with his version of it, and I have done the same for my version. So we're both going to do our own versions of them, and then when we're finished the series, you'll get to see the two final products. So it's a 2-for. We're going to have two of the same project, but because our fabrics are going and our threads are going to be different, you can see how you can personalize this to suit your tastes or your decor if you're making it because you want it for a specific area in your house or whatever. The final one, I think, is, I don't remember what the, let's see, go to, does it tell us what the final dimensions are?
Yeah, it did originally on thing, but I can't remember what it was.
It's not huge.
Huh. It is like 19 by 20 or something.
Something like that. Yeah, it's not really big. But we'll come back to the instructions in a second, but I'll show you one of the tiles, which is this one that's got like what looks like a horse's head, two horses' heads right up here in the top left-hand corner. I've done one, and there it is. I want to see how this was all going to work out because we're changing the instructions, and we'll explain why we're changing the instructions with this. But that's one of the 12 blocks, what it's going to look like in my color field. Walter hasn't done his yet, so we don't know what it's going to look like yet. So let's look at the pattern first of all, because these patterns are usually very, very lengthy, many pages. I do recommend that you print the pattern out as opposed to reading it from the screen, unless you have a setup where your computer is right next to your embroidery machine. Mine's pretty close, but not right next to it. I just find it's easier, especially when you want to check off steps and things like that. And I'll explain what I mean checking off some of the steps, because there's actually this document and there's another document that comes with it as well. And we're using both documents. So here's the basic instructions. That's the cover. It shows you what the final product should look like. And then they list the threads. Now they're using Isocore. Isocore is a good quality thread. I've never used it, but it's one of the top embroidery threads. The reason I don't use Isocore is I don't have it readily available to me, and I'm a Floriani guy simply because my local quilt store sells Floriani, and that's who I got started with when I got my embroidery machine the first time. But either one is fine. But there is a problem. If you're using another brand of thread, then you've got to find, if you want to try to keep it as close to the original design in terms of colors, you've got to find things that are close in your thread collection, or you just do your own thing. No matter, and you can. Now, I have an app on my phone from Floriani that allows me to plug in any one of the major thread manufacturer's number, and it'll find me the equivalent for the Floriani threads. But it gives me a wide choice of possibilities because you may not have every one of those threads, and I have a lot of thread. So like I have 600 or 700 spools of thread. Yes, I'm a thread whore. And Walter doesn't use Floriani that much. He uses
I use the Superb or Super B or whatever you call it from Monfil. It's less expensive for thread. I have large cones of it, and I have 175 colors of it, I think. But I also, there's certain colors that it's lacking in that group, so I do supplement some of my colors with some spools of Floriani in certain color groups, like purples. I don't have great selection of purples and stuff like that, so I may use some Floriani as well. So I use a combination of the two.
and you can.
And I use that Floriani app as well, except that on that app it doesn't have my thread list, my threads on there. So I just guess as close as possible to what threads I would like to use on and I may change them slightly.
Yeah. And I do the same, but for this project, I actually looked on my app on my phone. I plugged in this number 0010 and to find the equivalent thread or one's close to that color. Now, of course, that's silky white. That was easy. I just used white. But the same with all of these. And I write that number right beside this as my guide. And there's another spot I put it in too that makes it even easier for reference. Because I want to be consistent. If, for example, I may be using grape in the first tile, but I may not come back to that color until the third tile. And they will give me the same number for that. But if I get my colors mixed up, then it's going to change the overall look. I want to keep the same ones consistent throughout. So
I've done the same thing.
Yeah. So they give you the whole list here. And yeah, when you first start one of these projects, or any time you start one of these, whether you're experienced or inexperienced with this kind of stuff, it is a good thing to go through and analyze your pattern. And you'll see why here. Okay, on this side, materials. Now they're talking about stabilizers. This is what you're going to be putting your fabric on, and the thread's going to go through and keeps your threads all nice and neat and everything and secures them. So they want you to use their heavyweight tearaway 15-inch, one roll. Then they want you to use ultra clean and tearaway 15-inch, one roll. Fusible woven black 15-inch, one roll. OESD Badge Master Washaway, OESD Aquamesh Washaway. Okay, there are 5 different stabilizers for this. No. You do not need 5 different stabilizers to do this project or any other project. And if you've caught our So Chatty that we did some time ago about stabilizers, you know that there's only about 2 major stabilizers that we use and covers 99.9% of our projects. And that's a washaway and a tearaway. Oh, and a no-show mesh. So there's 3. So they're talking here a heavyweight tearaway. Also ultra clean and tearaway.
Yeah, like in fact, and if you look at their instructions, one of the steps they've got is to fuse a stabilizer to the back of your fabric.
Yeah.
And no, we don't do any of that.
No, they talk about using like an SF101 kind of interfacing that is fusible for more stability. You do not need that at all. So the only thing I can say about all of this, Badge Master, you don't need it. Aquamesh,
they're just trying to sell you more product for something that you don't really need.
Yeah. So after we've gone through this, we will talk about what we're going to use. And it is considerably less, makes things a lot easier, and cuts down the expense of this. Because their stabilizers, if you were to buy them right from OESD, are very expensive. And we've talked about it many times. We buy all of our stabilizers on huge rolls from monfil.ca, Canadian company based in Quebec. And I buy my stabilizer by 100
and they may actually be very similar to, I don't think there's that many companies that make stabilizers. So a lot of the stabilizers across different companies are exactly the same. In fact, the stabilizers that we buy from Monfil, which is a Canadian company, the material that they use for their stabilizers are sourced from a U.S. company.
Yeah, it says that right on the package.
So,
Made in the
so
USA.
they are made in the USA, but they're sold in Canada. But I would imagine that a lot of those stabilizers are, no matter what brand you buy, are coming from the same places.
So basically, there's only 2 stabilizers in this whole project that we'll be using. We will be using something called No Show Mesh. No Show Mesh, we've shown it to you before, it is not a wash away. You basically can cut it away from your project. And when we get to the section in a couple of weeks' time where we show you how to trim up the blocks and everything, we'll talk more about that. And there is a water soluble for the freestanding applique. Only 2. So they want you to use 5. We're using 2. And they are the balloons. Yeah, we're happy about that. So yeah, now looking down at the fabrics and textiles, okay, they give you approximations of how much you need of everything. They want 2 yards of black cotton fabric. Well, that's for your background. Now you could use any color you wish, but the black looks good with the colors they pick because it almost is a neon effect.
It's a vibrant colors that you're picking, and the black makes them pop.
But if you wanted something, there's nothing stopping you from using whatever you want for backgrounds, depending on what look you're going for. 1 fat quarter of each of the following quilting cottons. Now they said they used Venertex cotton shot. Okay, this is a designer one. It's by Laurel Birch. Okay, so I'm sure she probably is affiliated with Venertex, and it's probably her line of fabric. So that's why they're going to recommend it. But again,
oh, by the way, are you showing this down here?
Oh shoot, we did it again. Okay, there, people. Now you can see what we were saying. Sorry about that. So over here was the threads. Okay, and now we're here in the stabilizers and fabrics and textiles. Okay, I get so carried away. Anyways, yeah. So, but again, they recommend these colors: a pink, a purple, a blue, and an orange. Okay, and that's for the things like this: the horse's head in this one's case, and the other animals that'll be in this as well. But again, you can use whatever you want, and we'll be showing you in a moment what.
Yeah, I've gotten some Northcott blender fabric that I'm using.
Well, actually, maybe we should go to those pictures right now, and I'll show them. So these are the fabrics that I'm using. So of course I've got my basic black in the background. And I didn't want to use a black that had any little dots or anything like that on it, because you can see my fabric that I'm using for the creatures is this line of fabric. This is actually a Venertex fabric that I'm using because I had a package of fat quarters of this that I've never used before, and I thought, this would work with that well. And this also is Venertex, but I've got a little label here. These are what are going to go for those freestanding applique flowers. I'm going to use these ones.
Now, I haven't selected mine yet for that.
No, well, that's what I've selected.
Yeah.
But they come from the same line. You don't have to use it from the same line. You can get whatever you want. And I mean, if you've got fat quarter bundles from something else, or you just have a lot of fat quarters, this is a great way to use up some of your fat quarters, or even scraps for that matter. You have some relatively large ones. And what they didn't call for, but we're going to use, is batting. But this is Battleizer. Battleizer is by Hoop Sisters, and it is a denser batting. This is meant to lay flat, and it's great in table runners, placemats, and in wall hangings as well. Now, if you want something to have a puffier look, well, you can use regular batting for it. But there isn't really any quilting on this particular design. You will do stitch in the ditch when you put it all together just to hold the layers together. But there isn't any real quilting on this one. So it doesn't matter then if you use batting or Battleizer. Battleizer does tend to be a little bit pricier. So if you've got scraps of batting you don't know what to do with, this is a good project for that. And basically, it won't make any major difference. It's just my preference to use Battleizer when I do it in the Hoop project. So this is my color scheme, and these are my threads that I've picked out. Now I have pulled up all the threads I need. I've put them in numerical order. I have this little stand. I made it on a 3D printer some time ago. And those are what I'm going to use with all of this. Walter's using, oops. Okay, get up here. So so tell us about your fabrics.
They're just a blender Northcott fabric that I use. I forget what the brand is that I'm using.
Looks like it might be Toscana.
Yeah, I think it's Toscana. Yeah. And it's I just have an orange, a purple, a blue, and a pink that I'm using that are fairly vibrant in color. And then on top you'll see all my Monfil Super B or Superb thread that I'm using. Except I have 2 Florianis that I'm using in purple.
Yeah. So there you go. So we've picked our colors, we've picked our fabrics. This is a good thing to do when you as you analyze the pattern, because otherwise it's going to waste more time as you try to figure out, and also figure out what colors you want to use as you're working through the project, and also to make sure you've got enough fabric as well. And that's why in the pattern, and let me just pull the pattern up here again. Pattern. This is the pattern. That is why it's a good thing to go through, and they give you an idea of what you need for fabric, how much. Now, they go on here, they'll use some specialty stuff. For the freestanding applique designs, they're using Luxe Sparkle Vinyl Purple, Vinyl Gold, Vinyl Orange, Vinyl Pink. Okay, if you want to do that, you could. That's not something a lot of people have on hand, so you'd have to purchase it. There's other things you could use. You don't necessarily have to use their vinyls. You could use Mylar, and you can get Mylar in different colors and that through Amazon, actually. I bought some not too long ago. It's up to you. But we've decided we're just going to use fabric because we don't think using these products is going to really add anything really more special to the design.
Yeah, plus we don't want to spend the extra money for it.
Yeah. Now they do talk about using batting and how much you need. Backing fabric, okay, that's when you put it all together. We haven't picked out our backing fabric or what we're going to use to bind it yet, but they give you the measurements for that. Then they have a list of tools. Give me a break. Grippy grid. I don't know what the grippy grid is. Well, yes, I do. I've seen it. It's basically a plastic thing with the grid for in the hoop, and it's so you can get your fabric in the right spot, like line it up. You don't need that for this project. Expert embroidery tape tearaway. Masking tape. And right now, I don't know why they've got that in there either, because usually you'll use like an embroidery tape or masking tape when you've got a piece that's you have to pull back when something else is being sewn. In this pattern, there isn't anything like that. So I don't know why they're putting that in there. Expert point and press tool. That's another device that they sell. And I have no idea what you would use it for, why you need it. An embroidery pressing cloth. Huh? I don't know what. Now, the only reason you might use that is because if you're using the vinyl can't take direct heat because it will melt a little bit. But you don't need that pressing cloth. They sell one. That's their product on there. You can use a piece of scrap fabric, or if you happen to have a Mylar sheet, like an applique sheet, you can use that too for it.
Can you use an old bed sheet too?
Yeah, like really. 505 temporary spray adhesive. Well, we'll come back to why they want you to use that. We're not using it. Ruler, rotary cutter mat. Yeah, well, that's a given. Contrasting bobbin thread, seam stitch only, maybe different colors. No, you can do this whole thing using a standard white bobbin. You don't need to switch out colors because no one's going to see the back of this when it's finished because there's going to be a backing on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, And the backing is going to look like a mess because they always do. There. Well, let's see here. There's the back of mine.
Yeah, and you can see there that you've got that no-show mesh in
Yep.
there, and
That's the white.
And the battleizer is inside.
Yeah, battleizers between the front layer and the back layer in here. And you don't have to tear it away or do anything like that. It can stay in it. It's like, first of all, it's a wall hanging. You're probably never going to wash it. But even if it did get wet or what you were going to wash it, no-show mesh is fine for that. So, yeah. Why they put up, though, it's just, obviously, it's just to sell you product. Fabric marking pen. Not sure what that's for either.
Maybe it's so that you can minimize the amount of fabric that you use. I don't know.
Walking foot or dual feed foot. Well, that's when you come to sew it together, and yeah, that just helps because you have layers, just like when you're putting together a quilt sandwich. Embroidery needle sharp 7511. I don't use 7511s. I think I'm using 9014s in my machine.
Yeah, I think mine I'm using 8012s. I
mean, that's personal preference, you know. And we did a whole thing about needle sizes and thread sizes, and if you shred and that, so we're not even going to worry about that. Then they talk about isocore thread colors per thread chart. Now, what they're talking about in a thread chart, and this is a really helpful thing, and most designs come with this kind of thing. And that's not what I wanted. Oh. I think I did it again over that last talk I just had. But here's what they're talking about thread charts. I'm going to blow this up a little bit more. They break down each tile and they tell you exactly this corresponds to the number that comes up in your embroidery machine for color changes, thread changes. And you see they've got their number. I just wrote beside each one of these numbers my equivalent that I'm using, and you follow this through. And it's a good checklist when you're working on it, especially if you get interrupted or something, you know where you get left off. I just check them off as I've done each one. So, and it also shows you what the final piece is going to look like, so you know where the placement of your fabrics is going to go. So, yeah, that's a good thing to have. All right, let's go back here to the instructions. Okay, so then they give you this, completed tiling seam size. There's our size, 19.5 inches by 22 inches. So this is not a big piece. It's a small piece for hanging on the wall. Probably make it out of a huge pillow out of it too. I don't know. There's lots of possibilities.
Yeah.
And they number them here, so you can keep track of, you know, the way. And this is the layout as well.
Make a bag out of it.
Yeah, you could. You could make a bag out of it too. Make a cool bag, actually. Now, they talked about the freestanding applique pieces. And these are the ones that they mean, these flowers. Now, here's a problem. If you look here, you see where the flowers are. But you notice the flowers go over the edges. So you actually have to attach them after you've got all the tiles together in one piece. Now, they do give you suggestions on how to do that. They say you can sew them down, you can glue them, whatever. But they want you to use this badge master stuff and everything like that. We're not going to do that. I'll show you what we have done, or what we will be doing. I just have to get them. Should have had these out beforehand. Okay, I did some experiments to see what would work right. I do not want to sew these on, like applique them on. You could, but you're dealing with a very large piece here. And you're putting these, and you're trying to applique, and you know, you're going around with your stitches and everything like that. We're going to glue them. And since this is never going to see a washing machine, we're going to use fabric glue, and it holds really well. So I don't think there's going to be any problem with that. I would have liked to have seen them actually incorporated into the embroidery, these bits of the flowers, rather than doing this as separate pieces. And then you just, when you join them, you just line them up. The only reason I can think of why they would do it this way that they want is to give it a more three-dimensional look. So what I did was, let's see, get these in the right order. I tried several different things to see how I want these done. Okay, first of all, I thought, well, why not use steam a seam? And put that into the hoop and then stitch on top of it. Well, the problem is steam a seam is sticky as well. So I was afraid it might gum up my needle, but it didn't. I tried it, didn't gum up the needle. But this was the result. The steam a seam is here, this white stuff. Well, you have to peel off part of the backing, and I had started doing that on here, but there isn't enough space on here to...
What about applying the steam a seam after you've made that and just ironing it on?
You could, but then you have to cut all the way around it.
Well, just do it in the middle.
Well, yeah, okay, you could just do that. Probably, too. Yeah, that would work.
And then the outside edges.
Yeah. Because you see, I tried to cut around, and yeah, my cutting sucked. Also, you got to be very careful. You want to get as close to those satin stitches as you can, but if you cut even one of the satin stitches, they all start to unravel, so that you're screwed. But yeah, what Walter said, you could just do it in one of these other methods I'm going to show you, and take out a little round piece, cut out a little piece of steam a seam, and just fuse it to this, and then fuse it down to it. The only thing I find with steam a seam, though, is steam a seam doesn't always hold well.
Well, what happens is you really need to, with something that thick, you really need to heat it up at that point where the steam a seam attaches to the fabric, because I use steam a seam in the shirts. I've used it in the bag too, where I've not steam a seam, but usable Peltex, which is a really thick piece of stabilizer. No, it's not steam a seam, but you really need to, when you're doing it on thick pieces of fabric, you really need to use a lot of...
I just lost one of my things.
Yeah, you just need to use a lot of it needs to heat a lot of heat, so that may not be that.
So that may not be the answer to this. Okay, so then I decided to do keep these in order here. Okay, then I decided to use water-soluble stabilizer with batting underneath. So I put the water-soluble stabilizer, I hooped it, I put down a piece of batting, did the placement line stitch in the tack down, trimmed the batting off, put my fabric on top of that, did the tack down stitch again, so it meant I had to back up a stitch in the order of the stitches, trimmed the fabric, and then did the embroidery on it. And that does work, but my idea was the batting might make it a little bit more puffy, so that when you stuck it onto the piece, it would pop out more. Not really, because there's so many stitches. You see what it does? It just flattens down the batting, so you don't even know there's batting in there, so you don't need that. So I thought, though, let's just do it on water soluble, and I did, and that works fine. So now this is the way I'm going to do it, and then we'll just glue it. Put a little glue, fabric glue here in the center, put it down, add a little heat to it to set it, let it dry, it'll be fine. That'll work. And I'm only using one product with it, much quicker, much faster, easy to trim, because you trim it in the hoop, and we'll be illustrating that in future video. So really easy. Now I did try one other product that I just got because I didn't know what to do with it, and it is a twill. And the twill is used for making badges, from what I gather. And so basically it is a very tightly woven fabric that is mounted on a piece of like vinyl-like stuff. So I didn't put any stabilizer in the hoop. I just simply hooped up a piece of the twill, did the embroidery, and it comes out nice and stiff, and it works. But I'd rather use the water soluble, because with the water soluble I can adjust how stiff I want this to be by how much water soluble I rinse out of it. So I just want to try the twill and see if there was any advantage over the other methods, and not really. Not if I'll save the tool for something else. So we're using water-soluble stabilizer. We're using no-show mesh. That's it. That's all we're using for stabilizers, as opposed to 5 different stabilizers that OESD wants you to use. And will your product be better if you use their products? No. No.
The only thing is maybe the flowers might look a little different if you're using their vinyl or something.
If using
like
the
but
vinyl,
other than that,
yeah. So let's see, go back here. All right. So now you know about all the products we're going to use and why we're going to use what we're going to use in our methodology. Now they go through, and we're not going to go through this step by step, but you can see how many steps there are. So for the very first panel, which was this one that I showed you here, they say that you need, for each one of those tiles, you're going to hoop an 11 by 15 inch or large enough to hoop, 1 layer of background fabric, 1 layer of fusible woven, 1 layer of heavyweight tearaway, 1 layer of ultra clean and tearaway. Why are we using 5 different fabrics? And they say hooping, or for each hooping. Now, I don't know if they want you to put all those in the hoop. The hoop will never handle all of that without popping. So they talk about, first of all, applying 1 layer of fusible woven to the wrong side of the applique fabric. I don't know why. If you give your fabric a good press, that's good enough. This stuff doesn't really add that much body to your fabric, the fusible woven. So there's a step you don't need. Apply fusible woven to the back of the background fabric per the product directions. So we're putting it on the applique fabric.
the backing, right?
And then we're putting it on the backing.
Okay.
Okay, so apply 1 layer of heavyweight tearaway and 1 layer of ultra clean and tear to the wrong side of the background fabric with this temporary spray adhesive.
Oh my God.
Like, why? Why? I don't even know why. Hoop fabric and stabilizer. All right, so you got this thick wad now, kind of a thing, which isn't going to make any difference to the way we're doing it. This is cut the prepared applique fabric, blah, 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 load this selected, blah, 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 thread the machine, blah, blah, place hoop on, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's just your basic sewing.
So basically, but what you're doing, what you've changed, is you hoop two layers of the no-show mesh.
I
right?
use 2 layers of no-show mesh. They get hooped. Then on top of that, I float a piece of batting. On top of that, I place my background fabric. And I'm floating 2 out of the 3. Okay, the only thing that's being hooped is the stabilizer,
Right.
the no-show mesh. I'm floating the batting and I'm floating the fabric. And I don't have to worry about hooping them because they're not going to move. After the initial stitch goes around, they're fine.
Yeah.
They don't move. So you don't have to do all the rest of this stuff. So much easier. Then they talk about remove the hoop from the machine, but not the project from the hoop. Place the hoop on a flat surface, completely cover the placement stitch with the prepared fabric. Tape in place to secure. There's where the embroidery tape came in, or masking tape. Again, there is no need to do this because the fabric doesn't move. And as soon as that first round of stitching goes around it, it's there. You don't need any more tape. It's just an extra step. I mean, okay, if your fabric was really, really slippery, but even then, I use a stiletto. When I first put, if I think it's going to move at all, and it never does, just to hold it down for a few stitches around, and then let it go. It's fine. Now, the trick here, though, too, is make sure you've pressed it. Now, some people say, well, do you add any starch to it? No, you just don't need to. There's absolutely no need to with the fabric. If you are a pre-washer of your fabric, don't. You don't need to. This is a wall hanging. It's not going to see a washing machine. You don't need to pre-wash your fabric. I never pre-wash my fabric anyways, period. But if you're one of those people who do, because that's habit, you don't need to worry about that for this. You're just giving yourself a whole lot more work that you don't need to do. So then they talk about taking out how you put all the other ones. See, every piece of fabric, they're taping it down. I don't know why. You don't need to. And you'll see in the video next week, because I did make a video showing how I made that first tile, you will see that I don't use any tape anywhere around it. Your thoughts?
No, you're right. I've done a few applique projects and stuff too. I've never used tape.
The only time I use the tape is when there might be a piece that overlaps and you're supposed to fold it back when this other thing goes on so it doesn't get caught underneath that. That's the only time, and I just use masking tape. Embroidery tape is not necessarily better than masking tape. And I say masking tape, not painter's tape. Painter's tape isn't strong enough, usually. Masking tape, but it won't leave a residue on your product if you ever come to the point where you want to use that. Embroidery tape is very expensive. It's like 15, 18 Canadian dollars for a small roll. Really not worth the effort. Although recently I did use some of it. I found it in a drawer and I tried it and it worked okay for the project I was doing, but I just wanted to use it up because it's been sitting in my drawer forever. So basically these instructions go through all the usual things. Notice you're using tape everywhere. Nothing special about these instructions. They are, as you'll see. But then we get down here. Okay. What the heck's my phone? They talk about the last color change is called the seam line. You use the same color as your backing fabric. So I use black. And it just goes around, and this will act as your cutting line when you trim it, because you trim all the way around the block 1/2 inch. And that's so you have a seam allowance that when you sew it all together, you can match it up, and you will hide that line. But if you use it in the same color as your background, if you don't quite get it lined up properly, no one's going to see it. I'll talk about my tricks for that using invisible thread when we get to that in a couple of weeks' time. But here, after embroidery is complete, press each block face down on a perfect embroidery pressing cloth. Write the number of the block on the back so it's easily to identify during construction. Use a pen or pencil that will not bleed through the front side. Well, you can press it if you want to. I did not press this. I saw no need to. I mean, I'm not sure why you would be pressing it. But I mean, it doesn't hurt, I suppose. Be careful with steam. Since you're not pre-washing the fabrics on this, they will shrink a little bit, and that might make it difficult when you're putting your tiles together. So I recommend just using a dry iron if you're going to do that afterwards. But I didn't find the need for that at all. Now, I will press it when I put the pieces together because I'll have seams back here, and I will want to press them over to one side or open. But again, we'll come to that when we get to that putting it together week. And then, of course, they talk here about trimming it, as I said, the 1/2 inch, and they've got the tiles. If you want to number them, you can. I'm not going to bother because it's pretty straightforward at this diagram.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't any tiles that look, all the tiles are unique, right?
Yeah, they're all unique, so it's easy to put together. It's kind of like a very simple puzzle. But there's nothing wrong with doing what they're saying for marking it. I probably wouldn't write on them at all. I would just use a sticky note and a pin. Yeah. I would write like number 1 and stick it on that. But for this one, I don't seem to need to do that at all. Okay. Then they talk about how you stitch it together. I'm not going to go through this with you because we will be doing this and showing you. But here's where we get into this. Adhere 2 layers of stable stick cut away to the wrong side of the applique fabric to provide stiffness to the finished element. Cut the prepared applique fabric 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch larger than the template that's included in instructions. The applique piece we're talking about are the flowers. Hoop 1 layer of aqua mesh and 1 layer of Badge Master for all designs. I'm not sure exactly what Badge Master is, but by the name, it suggests that that's for you're making these appliques more like you would do a badge. And Badge Master is something you can use on it for whatever purposes. I'm not sure. I'd have to research it further. All I know is I'm not using it. You don't need to. Load selected design, thread, everything like that. Remove the hoop from the machine, but not the project from the hoop. Place the hoop on a flat surface. Completely cover the placement position with the prepared fabric. Tape in place to secure. Return the hoop to the machine. This is all, quite frankly, useless. I think it's just to use up product.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any advantage to this, and I'm not going to bore you with the details. If you happen to get one of these designs and you go through it and you decide that this is what you want to do, you do you. But I think it's useless. I think it's just a way of selling more product. And they go on with that. And then they talk about how to take the flowers and attach them. They're talking about sewing it on. Now, yeah, I think I said something wrong earlier. I said appliquing them on. They're not appliquing them on. And the reason I didn't think about it, these are finished with a satin stitch all the way around. So you wouldn't really applique them like with a blanket stitch or even a straight stitch. They're just talking about sewing it in the center, small zigzag stitch in the middle. Well, that's another possibility. Didn't think of that. We were talking about glue before. It's not that big a piece. You probably could get it under your sewing machine without too much problem if you want to do that. I'm still thinking the glue here's the way to go. You can lay it out on your table, glue, 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 glue. Hit it with a little iron to steam set or to heat set it, and then let it dry for a few hours, and I think you'll be fine. We'll see when we come to that point, but I don't think there's any problem. Your choice. Sew it, glue it, whatever grabs you. And it says your thing is complete. Then they have some very general instructions about printing these out. This is interesting. I have never, well, I tried this once on a piece and said, screw that idea. They have templates, paper templates. You print them out, you lay them on your fabric pieces, and cut around them. Cut them out.
You mean pre-cut them first?
Pre-cut them first.
I think that might be, actually, it looks to me like a lot more work.
It is.
Yeah.
But the idea here is then, see, when you'll see it in the video, and we have shown this method before, and it's the way that I learned when I first learned how to do in the hoop applique. You have a placement line that's drawn all the way around on your design. That's your guide for where you put your fabric down, how big a piece of fabric you need. You cut a piece of fabric slightly bigger than that placement line. You lay it on top, and then there's something called a tack down line. And it's the same stitch. It goes all the way around and holds that down to the, okay, sorry for the interruption. Walter got a package from a quilt store. Anyways, I was saying, so what you usually do is after it's done the tack down line, you take the hoop out. You don't take your hoops apart. And you take your applique scissors and you cut very close to that stitch line. And I show you that in the video you'll see next week, how to do that. And then when the satin stitch comes up, it takes in all the rough edges and raw edges, and you're fine. What they're doing with this method is you're laying down, you've pre-cut your fabric to that shape, lay it down, and you have to line it up with the placement line. And then you do the satin stitching. So there's nothing that you need to trim. Well, it's easier when it's in the hoop already to trim it, as you'll find out. I've only tried this method once, and the thing is, if that's what they want you to use the 505 spray for. You take the fabric piece you've cut out in the shape, give it a little hit of this temporary glue. Ew, yuck.
Sorry.
We're having a bad time with this video today. Between interruptions, throwing up, not showing you the screens. Excuse us. If you don't get it lined up perfectly in that placement, when it does the satin stitch, it's going to be off. So don't do it. Okay, Walter's like blowing up his face here. So I will just carry on while he's having a snot fit. All right. So that is all the instructions, and we've explained, and I hope we were coherent enough given everything. I feel like we weren't, but are you finished?
I'd hope so.
Jeez.
So I guess that cold air, blast of cold Arctic air after I had to retrieve my package that cause me a problem.
Yeah, well, whatever. Okay, so anyways, that's the analysis of the pattern. And it's a good thing for you to go through a pattern to familiarize yourself, because not depending on what company they come from, some are not written as well as others. But once you've done one of these kind of projects, you pretty much do the same thing for any others that are in the same line of work. All right. So, yeah, that's the analysis. So next week, what we're going to do is we're going to show you from beginning to end with some little clips in there in between cut off, because these take a while to make. It came up and said, I think for this one, 40 minutes. Yeah, it's over an hour. By the time you cut your fabric piece to lay down, you change your thread colors and all that kind of stuff, it takes you probably about an hour for one of these tiles. So do the math. There are 12 tiles plus the appliques. So just 12 tiles alone at an average of an hour a piece, that's 12 hours. You are not going to do one of these projects in a day. I can guarantee that. So if you're thinking of, oh, I'll just rattle one of these off to give as a gift tomorrow, not going to happen. Got to give yourself time for this. Plus, you're going to get bored. Because after you've done the first tile or two, it's kind of the same. Little different shapes, but same kind of thing all the way through. So, yeah, next week, we will show you everything we've talked about, how it's applied when you put this together. Okay, so that's a lot right there. And I hope, I really feel I'm a little disjointed with this today. Sorry about that. But anyways, yeah, if you have any questions, put them in the comments below or send me an email, and we'll be happy to answer your questions for you. Just keep in mind, we are saying this is the way we're doing it. If you're an experienced in the hoop person, you probably have your method, and if that's what's working for you, if it's not broke, don't fix it. This is just us, how we do it. Okay, not saying it's better or worse. It's just what we're comfortable with. Okay. Any parting comments about this whole process? No? Okay. So thanks for tuning in this week, and next week we go on with this project. Have a great week. Say goodbye, Walter.
Goodbye.
Bye all.